Okay, so hello everyone, and thanks for choosing to watch our presentation. It's a pity we are not meeting in person in the conference. I was very much looking forward to that, but I'm still excited to share our research, our ongoing work, and hoping to get some feedback from you. So the title of our talk, of our work, is this spirituality, exploring reflective writings on the spiritual in martial arts. And my co-authors are Anna Kavoura from the University of Brighton, Heli Siltala from University of Jyväskylä, and Olli Tikkanen. So, if we look at the project first, what I'm going to talk about today. So, our aim was to explore the spiritual dimension of martial arts. And I'm saying here that although we don't even know what it is, and I will move into that kind of discussing spirituality, which is a very messy concept, and how we sought to make sense of it. Our methodological approach has been collaborative autoethnography, which means that the four of us, all who are co-authors of this work, we have been writing diary entries over basically a period of 1 year. So we have quite extensive material. Our project has been very explorative, and we have been just curious to see what happens, and a little bit unorthodox, I guess. So our methods include writing diaries, as I already mentioned, some additional reflective notes, taking some notes over in the phone as well, recording our thoughts. We had various discussions over coffee and brunch. So it's like a Sunday brunch club that we have, where we do a bit of work and also enjoy life. And then we also shared some readings over during this time of the project. And we also shared our writings with each other. So kind of what we have written during this project has also kind of shaped what the others are writing, and we have been commenting on each other's work. So methodologically, this is very unorthodox, and but we thought that this is the best way to go about it. So we have used all the means possible to kind of make sense of the spiritual dimension in our martial art practices. So I'll just say briefly a few words about who we are. So if we start from the left, there we have Heli. Heli is currently a doctoral student at the University of Jyväskylä at Department of Psychology. She is a very experienced martial artist. So she first started with judo when she was 12 years old. She has tried various martial arts, including MMA and kickboxing and Thai boxing as well. And at the moment, she's mainly involved in BJJ. Then the second one on the left is Olli Tikkanen with his kickboxing coach. So Olli has completed his PhD in sports sciences, and he worked as a postdoc after that, but now he has his own company, and he's not anymore actively in the academia, only as a hobby researcher, so to speak. And he has been doing martial arts for slightly over 10 years now. And he started mostly with MMA, and he has since mainly moved to kickboxing and Thai boxing. So he's competing in kickboxing and Thai boxing at the moment. And then the third one, from the left, we have Anna Kavoura. So Anna is postdoc at the University of Brighton with her main research focus on gender and martial arts. This is what she has been looked into already at her doctoral research. And Anna is the most familiar with martial arts research in particular. She is also a very experienced martial artist, has done very well in international competitions as well. She started judo when she was 18 years old, and now her main focus is on BJJ. and they are training together with Heli, or have been training together with Heli. And then I'm in the last picture from the left. So I am the most novice when it comes to martial arts. I've only started martial arts about 5 years ago. I'm doing Thai boxing. I started kind of shifted sports due to having too many running injuries. So running was my main sport. And now Thai boxing is my main sport. And everybody else has competed quite extensively except for myself. So I only had one competition so far. And this spring I was scheduled to have a couple of competitions, but we know what happened when the COVID has hit. So after that, everything has been cancelled. And so this is us. And that's what we have done so far. And I think one of the things I also want to mention in terms of Anna is the one who is the most involved in martial arts research. And I'm probably the one who has been most involved in spirituality research. So I'm currently a senior researcher at the University of Jyväskylä, but throughout my doctoral research and the 2 postdoc positions I held, spirituality and meaning in sport, more broadly, different types of sports, has been my focus of my work. And so I've tried to make sense of the concept of spirituality for over 10 years in my different research projects, and I can tell you that it doesn't get any easier. So the concept is very much evolving. There are different articulations. It's culturally specific. What is considered spiritual in Finland, where I'm from, is probably not what is considered spirituality in China or in different contexts. But if we look at some of the broad trends, we can see that kind of understandings of the spiritual dimension are increasingly moving towards a broad idea about existential meaning making surrounding meaning, purpose, and values in life. So spirituality would be something that is considered to be relevant to everybody, and not only people who belong to a religious community or who confess a religious faith. So I'll just jump into the next slides. Here we have some definitions, and we can see how things a little bit evolved. I took this from a book I co-authored with Mark Nesty a couple of years ago on meaning and spirituality in sport. And we were looking into different definitions. So for example, the Parliament definition there, 1999, considers spirituality as the heart and soul of religion. So in that definition, religion would be kind of the umbrella concept, and spirituality would be one aspect and one expression of religion. So this is one way of going about that. But the other way of going about that would be to kind of lift things upside down. So you would see that spirituality is the broad concept, and religion would be kind of one subset or one expression of spirituality. So if we look at the definition down there, Tanyi, 2002, their spirituality has been conceptualized as the personal search of meaning and purpose in life very broadly, which may or may not be related to religion. It entails connection to self-chosen and or religious beliefs, values, practices that give meaning to life, and thereby inspiring and motivating individuals to achieve their optimal being. So what we can see in literature is very broadly that spirituality has been taken up a lot in health research. It has been taken up also in vocational psychology as one aspect of how people make meaning of their work life, how they make career transitions. And kind of one of the things that comes up from this work is as well that people also want to express their spiritual ambitions, goals, and their beliefs through the work they do. And if they cannot do that, they will look for work. They will switch jobs to find something that is more aligned with their spiritual purposes in life. And we are doing some initial research in sport, in other projects as well. And we can see that spirituality, we looked more specifically at religion in one of our recent works, and we could see that influences how athletes find meaning in sport. So these things are related. And to kind of set some kind of starting point for our research, we didn't want to restrict ourselves to a very narrow definition of spirituality. And so we wanted to be very open in terms of just having open reflective writings on various dimensions of our martial arts practices, whether they are spiritual or not, by a specific definition. And we wanted to kind of see from that what we are writing, then kind of more at the analysis stage of how that relates to the concept of spirituality. But kind of to little bit guide our work, we also kind of drew on existential literature. So the paper I've put in the slide is one of those starting points that we had. So spirituality and existential perspective. So the paper is discussing about the paradox of meaning or meaninglessness, what it means to be a human being, identity and authenticity. And so we took some of those ideas as a starting point. So we all read this paper when we were about to start our writing. And then we had some discussions over dinner about what spirituality could be. And we could already see that there is a lot of diversity. So, for example, Anna said that she had never thought about her experience in martial arts or in more broadly in life in general, kind of as involving a spiritual element. So that was kind of from her cultural background and framework of meaning, that was much more something that is related to religion. And if you don't relate specifically to a religion, then it would be that spirituality is not kind of one of the words or frameworks how you make sense of your own experience. And in the Finnish context where I'm from, when I've been studying spirituality with distance runners, I also saw that a lot of runners would be very uncomfortable kind of relating their experiences to spirituality, even if they're talking about exactly the same things, like kind of sense of connection or some kind of transcendence when you are running. They would say that that's not spirituality because I don't go to church, something along those lines. So we see some of the dilemmas over there as well. So we will move on. So just to say briefly about the data. So the four of us, we have been writing diary entries. So we have 8, 26, 28, and 30 entries each over approximately a 1-year period. Unfortunately, one of us didn't have enough time to do that yet, so we are still hoping that he will complete his data, and so then we can have a more full data set. But you see that we have quite extensive data, so it comes close to 100 entries. So I can tell you it takes a bit of time to get through all that. I can tell you a bit that we had quite diverse styles of how we are doing this task, which also reflects that we were quite open-ended. So Olli was usually picking a theme that he wanted to talk about or write about. So he was writing an entry which was about roundhouse kick in Thai boxing, for example. Whereas the rest of us, so Heli, Anna, and myself, we were most typically writing in a more kind of traditional diary form. So kind of yesterday I went to the gym, I was feeling tired and blah, 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 or X and Y happened and so forth. And as I said, it's extensive data, and we have now completed a preliminary thematic analysis, and I will share you a few things from that. So let's see if we can move forward. And so I'm focusing today on 4 preliminary themes: search for meaningful way to practice, conflict in values and relationships, then we have embodied experience of joy, pleasure, and transcendence, and then tensions and anxiety with competing. And if we look into this search for meaningful way to practice, and when we reflected on what is spirituality, this is one of the first things that Anna was writing in her own diary. So she is saying that she has always been concerned about whether the activities, professional or recreational, I choose are meaningful and fulfilling, whether they take me closer to becoming a better person, and whether my actions are consistent with my values. So nowadays I see spirituality as the constant struggle to live with integrity and authenticity, and as balancing act between all my different selves, hopes, and dreams. It is those few moments that I feel all the different elements of my identities are in peace with each other and with the environment that I experience as spiritual. Practicing martial arts has also been related to my search for meaning in life. So this is kind of the starting point of our of her writing, and I think we could all kind of relate to that. So practicing martial arts is also about a broader search of how to conduct ourselves in the right way, and how to find meaning in life through embodied practice. I think one of the things that very quickly started to come through was that we were searching for this, what could be how we see as the spiritual element of practicing, and then we quickly started kind of picking up on things that didn't seem to be very conducive in our training cultures. So one of the things I have written in my entry was that the values in the previous gym, the typical hegemonic masculinity, were not aligned with my own values, and I didn't make many friends at the gym, even if I was going there for almost 2 years. So for me, a more meaningful way to practice is when people of similar approach, or even preferably alone, because then there is no conflict and it's easier to be in control of the meaning of the practicing. So that's kind of been one of my own reflections, that I always but I enjoyed training alone. And now training alone a lot with the corona, I felt that I was in control of the meaning of the practicing, and that has been somehow liberating for me. And then the third theme, so we had a lot of reflections on embodied experiences of joy, pleasure, and transcendence. This one is from Olli. When I can move freely, I'm not only being my body, but actually feel a euphoric unity between my mind and body, and sometimes also with my surroundings or even something bigger. I might feel very energetic and free when I can just let my body move. If I get into nice flow, it feels more that I am an observer of what might come out as movements. So it's this kind of immersion to the activity. Sports psychologists would quickly start talking about flow, but also this kind of bigger sense of unity or connection, which is a theme that is very prevalent in literature on spirituality. And then we had, especially from the women, the three of us wrote a lot about the tensions and anxiety that was associated with competing. So Heli is saying that I never became a good competitor, so I chose to focus on being a good martial artist, meaning that I want to keep on training in order to develop myself in the sport, have fun, and also help others towards their goals. During this process of writing the diaries, Heli also struggled with the meaning of martial art for her more broadly. So she's writing that recently I felt anxiety when I've been thinking about training, and it has been very similar to the feeling that made me quit competing. This has made me think about what the sport means to me and what do I gain from it. Since this is just a hobby for me, it feels insane to stress so much over it and feel bad over something that I thought that should bring me joy. I have been wondering whether I should have a break from training altogether for a couple of weeks. I think that could give me time to relax and prevent me from forcing myself to the gym until I quit completely. So there's also been this difficult time period for her, and if I had the time, I would probably talk much more about what this writing process itself has done for us. But if you see Anna Kavoura's presentation, she is talking about that aspect of our research as well. And so to wrap up, just a few more things. I can also say that we wrote about different practices because all of us are also doing other things, such as surfing, horse riding, running in the nature, mountain biking, all these different activities. And we can see that there's a different element, different potential spiritual element in different practices. So my quote here is about transcendence when you are doing nature-based sports, a sense of being one with the nature. And this is something that is not so readily present in martial arts, where you are in a human-made facilities. So there is no nature spirituality in that. And Gunnar Breivik, who is a sports philosopher, has talked about different primary dimensions in different types of sports. And he would say that the IU dimension is the primary dimension in martial arts. And that was clearly what came through in our research as well. So we have a lot of reflection on how do we relate to others in an ethically right manner. So as mentioned, we had these questions about spirituality and meaning disrupted. We did write about things that are unconducive for meaningful experiences, such as concerns for our physical safety with certain training partners, a lack of harmony with them, fear of failure when it comes to competitions, and misuse of power. And to wrap up my talk, sorry to be a bit over 20 minutes, I can just say that none of us made meaning of martial art through a theistic framework of meaning. But what made sense to us was to draw on existentialism and some thoughts or writings on Zen to make sense of our practices. And what I already kind of mentioned briefly was that this reflective writing process helped us not only in clarifying meaning, but it also made apparent these moments when meaning was lacking, and how the cultural practice in our martial art communities, and also how we approach our practice, for example, when it comes to competitions, could be antithetical to spirituality. So this is all from me, and I really appreciate you taking the time to follow this presentation, and we would really love to receive your comments and feedback on our work. So thank you.